Hey, what's up guys, and welcome to my video. This video, as you've probably guessed by the title, is all about CES, and it's a roundup of all the key information. There's way too much stuff that happened to go over all in one video, but it's really just the sort of information that you need or will want to hear, and it's the sort of stuff that I feel is relevant to you. Now we're going to start with really the elephant in the room, the sort of thing that you've probably already heard of, which is Steam machines. But what are they? Well, Valve don't make them. But what they essentially are is like a games console without any of the games console branding behind it. So there's no Sony, there's no Microsoft, no Xbox, no PlayStation. It's just essentially a PC that runs a version of SteamOS. And if you don't know what SteamOS is, I'll be going over that a bit more in another video. But it's essentially just a really dimmed down operating system that is really, really good for games, but not a lot else. But obviously it's the sort of thing that will be on a games console anyway, and you'll be able to turn it on and it will come straight up with the Steam Big Picture overlay that you see here, and then you can just launch in your games, buy stuff from the store, similarly to what you can do now on both Xbox and PlayStation. But of course the key difference there is that because you've got none of that branding, you get the benefit of the cheaper games and just the games in general. You don't have to pay extra money as a license fee to Sony or Microsoft, and you get the huge PC selection of games. On top of that, you also get Steam's controller, which I haven't used, so I can't say whether it's good or not, but it's the only controller really that is meant to be a good substitute for a mouse and keyboard. You can use it with any mouse and keyboard game, even if it's got no controller support whatsoever. So take a game like Civilization 5, you could play it with a controller if they remapped the controls and things and make it controller specific, but that's not there. You can't use a controller with that game, and you wouldn't really want to anyway. But with the Steam controller, from what people have said, it works very well. It does take some time to get used to, but it's still all in prototype stage, but we'll hear more about the Steam machines a bit later on. But the thing is, they range in price and of course power and quality and size as well. Take the Alienware one for instance. We don't really know much about it other than how it looks, but it looks very nice. It's meant to be smaller than both consoles, and it's the sort of stuff that you'd want on top of, say, your Blu-ray player or stuff like that. And it'll just sit underneath your television. But as I said, we don't know about price. They say it's going to be competitive with the Xbox. It probably, almost certainly, really won't be the same sort of price as the PlayStation 4. But it could be quite near to the Xbox. We don't know what's inside of it really either. But the whole point really is, other than being able to play the whole library of PC titles, having a mouse and keyboard substitute, but you can also upgrade it. It's not a static device, it's something that you'll be able to upgrade over time, and you'll be able to get as much power out of it as you want. That being said, there's not really much reason to go and buy, say, a $1,500 Steam machine when you're much better off getting a proper PC that costs the same and then streaming it downstairs or wherever your living room or wherever you want to play is. And this is the thing that concerns me. I just don't really see the point in it. Nvidia are showcasing their streaming service, and they're saying how well it works as long as you've got a wired connection. You know, that could be a power line connection as well. And there's just no point in having another computer, in my opinion. So this thing's meant to be a console killer. But I don't really see how it's going to do that, because the only people that kind of know about it are people like you and me, people that are interested in PCs or just really into gaming. They're really competing for the sort of gamer that doesn't really know about this sort of thing, the sort of player that plays Call of Duty maybe, or FIFA a lot of the time. And I just don't think it's going to be particularly useful to them, because they're not really going to want to play the PC specific titles anyway. They're probably not going to want to use a new controller, and to be honest, they're probably not that interested in the upgradability either. So I personally can't see this kicking off for the time being, and of course the fact that it's running on SteamOS, which is Linux, which doesn't really have many games anyway. Everyone seems to be missing that point out. Obviously that is going to grow, and that is a good thing. But at the moment, there's pretty much no use for this box whatsoever, in my personal opinion. If I had one, I wouldn't really use it. If I was given one for free, I wouldn't really use it, so I definitely wouldn't buy one. But that is the Steam machines anyway. More on that as it develops. Now the other massive thing that was showcased off at CES, which I'm sure you've heard of, is 4K. And last year it was very, very niche, very, very expensive, and this year it's still quite niche and still quite expensive. I myself would like to think that if there was a not necessarily a affordable 4K TV, but maybe a affordable, expensive 4K television, if that makes sense, maybe around the $1,500, £1,000 sort of mark. It's the sort of thing I'd be interested in. It's a high performance television, and it's something that if you're interested in having a great television, it's something that you're going to be able to afford to buy. But unless you've got, they're saying about £2,000 this year, which is down from the £4,000 last year, then you'll be able to get one, which is definitely a lot more people, but sadly probably you and me aren't really in that category. It's not really the sort of thing you're going to go out and buy as an impulse. There were a couple of 4K monitors announced as well. One of them is by Dell, but they're cutting a lot of corners. They're affordable, but they don't have HDMI 2.0, which is really key information. If you take anything out of this video, you've got to take the fact that if you're going to buy a 4K device, it has to have HDMI 2.0, because that means you can use 4K at 60 Hz resolution and frame rate. That means essentially you can play games on it, because you can play games over HDMI 1.4, which is the old standard, and you can definitely watch films on them, but you don't want to play games at 30 frames a second now, and you're definitely not going to want to do it with 4K. If you had a 4K television that could only do 30 frames a second, you'd have the choice between 1080p at 60 frames a second or 4K at 30. And if you're going to be spending a load of money on a new device, that's not a choice you should have to make. So that's 4K. It's getting there, but it's not quite there at the moment. Couple that with the fact that you need stupid amounts of graphics performance to actually run a 4K TV at the sort of settings you'd want to run it at. Of course, you don't really need anti-aliasing anymore, and some of the higher settings, things like textures, you're going to have on high, obviously, you know, kind of what's the point? But you can tone some of the shadows and stuff down, but you're still going to need loads and loads of graphics performance to run that, and definitely me, and probably not you either, can actually afford this sort of really expensive setup, and it's arguably not really worth it at the moment. Anyway, but it's getting there. More stuff is going that way, and hopefully in at least 2 years' time it's going to be getting near affordable for enthusiasts, and that's the main sort of thing. Now next up is a concept, and this is a concept by Razer. Again, you may have heard of it, and it's called Project Christine, and this is a modular PC concept. What does that mean? Well, it means that you can mix and match components, but really easily. It would essentially be like upgrading your CPU to a higher end one would be as easy as just plugging in a USB device. Literally just take it out and plug it in, and away you go, essentially. Obviously there'd be a bit more to it, but that's how easy they're trying to make it be. I mean, it's not really that difficult at the moment, but it's definitely out of the reach of a lot of people that don't know about how to upgrade computers, and to be honest, they don't really want to know how to upgrade computers. It's not of interest of them. The problem with this concept is it's going to take support from everybody. At the moment it's just a concept, so it's just a small team's idea, and for that to become mainstream industry is many years away, if it's going to happen at all. It's interesting. They say it's going to be quite, well, it should be quite expensive as well, because all the components are liquid cooled and they're meant to be quite silent, which is brilliant, but it's quite a few years off at the moment, and I definitely wouldn't hold your breath, and definitely wouldn't consider waiting to get one, because it's going to be many years. But it is quite an interesting concept, and if we do hear any more about that, I'll be sure to bring that news to you direct. Now lastly, it's my favourite thing from CES. I'm not going to lie, I was slightly disappointed with CES this year, just because it wasn't really that much there, to be perfectly honest, that was groundbreaking. It was more just the big boys showing off their latest tech rather than showing off innovation. It was only really the Razer Project Christine that really grabbed headlines as something new and innovative. But the thing that has got me really quite psyched is a new monitor, and it's not a 4K monitor. This is a new monitor that's currently branded as the Ultimate Gaming Monitor, and it's by Asus, and you may have heard of it, you may have not, but the thing that's so good about it is the fact that it's a 1440p panel at 120 Hz. Could be a bit more, it says 120 Hz plus. What does this mean? Well, it pretty much means what it says on the tin, the Ultimate Gaming Monitor. It's got a really low 1 millisecond sort of delay response time as well, and if it works as well as they say it will, it literally will be the Ultimate Gaming Monitor. And it also comes with NVIDIA's G-Sync technology, which they say is pretty game-changing. One thing that they don't tell you is that they've already got their adaptive VSync technology out there, which turns VSync on and off depending on how many frames you've got, which, to be perfectly fair, doesn't always work as well as it should. But it's not as groundbreaking as they're kind of making out. But obviously it's very interesting, and it's something I will definitely want to be purchasing at the time. The drawback is that it's a TN panel, and a lot of people complain about this, but you've got to realise that there just isn't any 120Hz IPS panels out there at the moment. I'm sure they're in development, but at the moment the technology just isn't there. So you can't really complain about getting this sort of panel with that sort of refresh rate. It's just not been done before, it's the first one, and bearing in mind people are all looking at 4K as being the future for gaming, at the moment the graphics power isn't really there anyway. Having 2 or 3 Titans just isn't practical, and you're going to notice a big difference on this 27-inch 1440p panel anyway, and that extra horsepower can go towards the extra frames a second. If you're playing any sort of game, any sort of first-person shooter, be it Battlefield, Counter-Strike, or say a game like League of Legends or Smite or something like that, then the extra frames a second is really, really essential once you get used to it. It's not essential, you can play without it, but it really does make a big difference. So if you are going to look at getting a new monitor, I would definitely recommend keeping an eye on this one. I'll hopefully be getting my hands on one and showing you nearer the time. But it's just absolutely amazing in my opinion that you can get 120 frames at the higher resolution. It's definitely what this industry needs, and hopefully in 5 years time we'll be using 120Hz 4K IPS panels, but obviously we're here today, not in 5 years time. So that was my CES roundup. I hope it's been beneficial to you. Obviously there's loads and loads of stuff that I didn't mention, but at the end of the day this is the stuff I'm interested in and that I'm sure you will be as well. Leave any comments below. What did I miss? What did you think was big at CES? What do you think of the monitor? What do you think of Steam machines, more importantly, and SteamOS and all that sort of jazz? And as I said, I'll bring an update on SteamOS and tell you all about it in a couple of days, probably about a week's time. Until then, I will see you next time, and don't forget to leave a comment and subscribe as well to PC Centric for more videos like this. See you later.